welcome to Talkumentary. Yeah, a show where we watch documentaries and get together and talk about them. Can I hear you?
Amen.
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 Amen. All right. Holy, holy, holy.
Good morning, Matt.
Lord God
Hi, Jeff.
Almighty.
Thanks for letting me come out here.
Of course. Morning, Jess.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
Talkumentary.
Holy,
Welcome,
holy,
everyone,
holy.
to Talkumentary. What's going on, friends? My name is Jeff, and this is our show. Today, I am joined by the lovely, buttery voice of King James himself. What's up, James?
What's going on?
Thanks for playing the preacher man today.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also joined by Mr. Matt. What's up, buddy?
Hello, sir.
And we have a very special guest with us today. Matt's lovely bride, Jessica.
Well, hello.
Hello, my friend.
Hey.
Hey, girl. Hey, what's your number? We've all come down to the documentary den today to discuss a somewhat depressing, but very, pretty much, I thought it was a pretty well-made 90-minute documentary called The Overnighters.
It's a very broken world. Everybody's broken. The hard part is that, broken people need love.
People with 10 felonies is getting $100 grand a year.
So I got a pretty good criminal history.
I can't afford to live.
I'm just at the end of my rope.
Everyone deserves a chance. This is America. That's what this country was founded on,
It's a hard time. We've had people sleeping in our parking lot. They're waiting to come in the building. And we're a church. This is a place where sinners should come.
How long do we intend to support them here is my question. Because they rape, pillage, and burn, and then they leave.
This was a 2014 documentary that depicts the lives of people chasing the dream of high salaries in the North Dakota oil boom, only to discover that affordable housing is almost impossible to find. The doc focuses on the efforts of Pastor Jay Reinke. Reinke? I don't remember how.
I think I said Ranky.
Reinke?
Ranky.
Reinke. Okay. This pastor allowed over 1,000 different people to stay at his church over a period of about 2 years. What did you guys think overall? What was just overall thought?
Overall thought,
Yeah.
it kind of made me mad a little bit in some instances.
Did it? I'm interested to get into that there, Matt.
It did kind of make me mad a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jess, we were watching this. You told me earlier you weren't real stoked on this one.
No, I wasn't. So when I watched the trailer, I'm from all over, but small town specific, and I saw very beginning how exactly this was going to go. Like small town does not welcome strangers generally. And
we do.
Then when you talk about, do we?
Welcome, strangers.
Well, I suppose we do. I thought
Down
you meant
here we
our metropolitan area.
No, we don't.
But yeah, there was some turns I was not expecting and some things I did not foresee. And some of them, like Matt, kind of upset me a bit. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get into that. James, overall thoughts?
Well, when I first started, I was thinking. When I first saw it, I was thinking that it was going to be like this about a bunch of homeless people live with one man, but it turned out to be a little bit better than that. And I'm kind of interested in the guy.
Yeah.
The preacher guy, how he saw things.
He's an interesting character.
He is.
Yep. So the Overnighters won a few awards, including the U.S. Documentary Special Jury Award for Achievement for Intuitive Filmmaking at the Sundance Film Festival in 2014. It won Miami's Night Documentary Award at the Miami International Film Festival in 2014. It also won Full Frame Inspiration Award at the Full Frame Documentary Film Festival and Best Documentary Feature at the Crested Butte Film Festival in 2014. The documentary was written and directed by Jesse Moss, produced by Jesse Moss and Amanda McBain. This film was a Mile End Films, Aldila Films, and Impact Partners production, distributed by Draft House Films, streamed on Tubi And we will have all that information in the show notes as usual. Let's get into it. A quick warning before we get into the episode. If you haven't watched The Overnighters yet and you would like to, please do. This is your one and only spoiler alert, so go watch it and come back and then join us. Are you gone? Good. All right, we're back. First, let's talk about why we chose to watch The Overnighters this week. I played dealer for this, and I thought this film looked like a heartfelt, possibly kind of heavy look into a small part of American life that maybe some people just don't get to see. And I think for the most part, that was what we saw. I think there was a kind of a view into maybe small town America that maybe some of us larger city folk don't maybe know about so much. The homelessness, the altruism of the one man and putting one man's faith to the test was an interesting concept to me based on just the trailer. So that's why I chose it, why I thought it looked interesting. Had anybody here seen this before we did it for our show?
No.
I have not.
Never even heard of it.
Nope, me neither. Predictions. James, when we said we're watching Overnighters this week, what were some of your predictions? What did you think?
I was thinking that it was just about, like I said, before, a bunch of homeless people just running to make money. That's why I didn't even think about the whole thing, but that's what I got out of it from the beginning.
Yeah. Matt, Jess?
Yeah, my predictions were, watching the trailer, I thought it'd be more involved with the oil fields and in the northern plains. And, after seeing it now,
it's not really what it was.
Not
was it?
really. Did not focus on that. Not at all.
Not at all.
Jess, same kind of thoughts?
I mean, yeah, kind of. I expected a lot of, the locals not liking what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I foresaw.
Yeah, and we did see some of that.
Yeah,
that's for sure. Yeah, in the trailer they did show quite a few shots of like the oil field and people working on there. Really wasn't much of that. There was just some B-roll footage, showing some of the guys working, but it was not a major part of what was going on.
Well, they weren't really the ones that made the story.
No,
honestly.
Well, not only that, but I mean, they were painting the premise of them going up there was for the oil field jobs.
Yep. Yeah, and they didn't touch on that much. They really didn't go into much of the work side of this at all.
Not at all.
Well, a little at the end, I guess. Like if you're older, you're probably not going to stand a chance. Was kind of what they.
Yeah, that's true. Yep, and that was kind of a heartbreaking realization for some of those guys too. We'll get into some of our favorite or least favorite details about Overnighters, but here's a quick synopsis of what went down. This documentary closely followed the tale of Pastor Jay Ranke. The Overnighters is a story of struggle. At the beginning, the documentary shows the struggle of the working men and women who made their way to the small town of Williston, North Dakota. Because of the tales that they were being told about high wages for work out on the oil fields. Unfortunately, even if the people found work, which was kind of interesting to me that they didn't really talk much about the people that were working and the people that weren't working and why they were needing to do what they had to do in this documentary. But they ended up having a harder time finding somewhere to live, which was, I don't think anybody saw that coming when they were on their way to North Dakota. So enter Pastor Ranke. He decided to open the doors of his church and start a ministry that allows these workers to stay on the floor of the church or in the parking lot until they were able to find their own places to stay. If they weren't on the floors, like I said, they're sleeping in cars in the parking lot, and these people became known as the Overnighters. If the story of struggle followed the Overnighters at first, it quickly began to become clear that Pastor Ranke's struggle was just as prevalent in this story, which I would argue was the actual story here.
Oh, absolutely.
Was his struggle more than the oil field workers.
Yeah, he never alluded to what his struggles were, but he made some comments about being broken and how the Overnighters were broken and that was definitely tied into the
Well, I think he was
story.
referring to his sins, like his general sin.
Yeah.
When he was talking about that. He wanted to be what a Christian should be.
Exactly.
Was his purpose, you know, and anyway. Yeah.
Yep.
I think he was sincere in his heart that he really wanted to try to make that change.
I agree with that.
Yeah. No matter what, he just fought all the way.
Yeah. And I've definitely got some things to say about his mission and the way that he did it. I do have some respect for the man because despite what people were telling him, he was doing what he felt was right, whether that was because he felt that God was calling him to do that, or whether it was because he just felt that as a good human being, that's the right thing to do. He wasn't letting anyone tell him otherwise, unless he was, breaking laws, which even then he pushed the boundaries in a few different.
He did. Well, and like he said, he has floor space. Like they have nowhere to sleep and I have a floor.
Yeah.
Like that's just the right thing to do.
Yep. I would agree with that. So family stress, pressure from the community, and certain laws made to limit the use of RVs in parking lots. The local newspaper digging up dirt on some of the overnighters, and Ranke's decision to house registered sex offenders in his own home are only a few of the things that this well-meaning pastor had to contend with. Eventually, Ranke is forced to end the overnighters ministry in his church and ultimately decides to resign. And kind of toward the end, as sort of an added insult to injury, it's revealed that the pastor had been engaging in homosexual relations outside of his marriage, which ultimately led to the collapse of his family, or so we are led to believe. In the final few scenes, sort of a full tie together or come full circle, Ranke is shown putting a box in his car and looking toward the oil fields for work, just like so many of the overnighters that he helped had been forced to do before him. Matt, you had some standout moments in this. Let's just get into some of the details that stood out to you first, buddy.
Yeah, the standout moments for me were, when Pastor Ranke was going around, advocating for the overnighters, he approached a house where, they were obviously not approving of the group. Well, they were calling them trash and judging all the overnighters that came up there to try to provide for their families and themselves.
Right.
And really, the standout moment on that was, as Pastor Ranke was walking away, he was also judging the homeowner, saying how he was missing all of his teeth, living with his mom. Yeah. And that hypocrisy makes me angry. I hate hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Is that how you kind of like saw that the pastor was being hypocritical?
He was being hypocritical. And that's the one thing about people that I hate hypocrisy.
How was he being hypocritical? I mean, make me understand, because I don't.
Well, so, the homeowners were saying those people were trash. Mm-hmm. Those overnighters were trash. Well, that homeowner is judging those people. He don't know every single one of them. Mm-hmm. So as, pastor was walking away, he was making his own judgments about the homeowner, saying his teeth were missing and he's living with his mom. And, that's just daughter. You can't call yourself a Christian and be judgmental. Right. Yes, you call it a sin. You can call it whatever you want. But if you really want to truly be a good human being, don't pass judgment on others.
Exactly. I'll get your point now, because
where
I'm from is like, it's kind of like where I'm from, where I'm from. When he said what he said was like, it's like, how dare you talk about somebody else when you're there's no good. I mean, you're not in a good spot yourself. Before you talk about your brother, pull the mote out of your own eyes first. That's kind of what he should have said. Mm-hmm. But he did make a judgment call that he shouldn't have made. Mm-hmm. Being a pastor.
To me, it was kind of like right or wrong, so when he walked away, he said into the microphone something along the lines of, here's a guy who just called the overnighters trash. Now, I'm not one to judge someone by their appearances, but a guy with no teeth who's living with his daughter calling other people who have needs trash. Now, I kind of took it the same way James did a little bit, where it's more like him just commenting, like, look, you're talking about people you don't know, but I get where you're coming from too, because he's also saying the same thing about him.
He's saying things that he doesn't need to say necessarily. Right. You could just totally shrug it off and say, hey, that person just doesn't support this.
I just feel like there's got to, and I'm not advocating for anybody here, but there's got to be some frustration. I mean, this guy's going around door to door trying to just let people know what's going on, and he's a human too. So,
I mean, kind of like he was inviting them to a mixer. He wasn't like, "Hey, this is my situation." So
first,
it
I
wasn't
think he was, wasn't he?
necessarily. And I don't think so.
No.
I think that he was sugarcoating what was actually happening and what he was actually made aware of, and he didn't make people aware of that. So like I kind of agree with you, but also not so much.
Sure. And that's all right. What stood out to you, Jess? What was,
There's a few that what y'all just talked about that definitely stood out for both reasons. Honestly, I found it interesting. While stories of how people got to their situation is very important, and everybody has their own story, and you clearly, we just talked about, you don't pass judgment amongst others. But if you're going to do something, the level that he did, especially being a man in the community and a man of faith, you would think he would be open about that situation. And he wasn't. And if he was, the outcome may have been different. And that's kind of what makes me mad, because as a mother and a, community member in a small town, if my church is bringing registered sex offenders in, I want to know why. Like, maybe their story is, like Keith we talked about, or we probably will, whatever.
Yeah.
He got his conviction as a 18-year-old dating a 16-year-old.
Right.
That's very different.
Yeah.
They're very different tiers and all of that stuff.
Sure.
And, maybe explaining your vetting process for the people you have around could have made a different outcome.
Yeah. Could have.
Maybe
not. But
I mean, maybe not. It's a small town.
At least you're being above board, and you're being, you're
not hiding anything that way.
The point was to this comes straightforward. Tell all that you can about yourself, and just let it fall where it falls. Tell the truth, and let that set you free.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, for me, I think the standout moment, and I'm kind of enjoying the fact that you guys had a little bit of a different opinion of Pastor Renke than I did upon first watch, because then we get to have discussions and it's hopefully better for people to listen to. But the first thing that stood out to me was, for the majority of the film, just his attitude, because to me, we've talked about in previous Talkumentary episodes, my, being raised in the church and not having the faith that I was raised with now. But to me, he didn't let the stresses of what was going on keep him from doing what he felt was the right thing to do. And most of the time, with the exception of a few times, he was doing it with a smile, with as much joy as he could muster up, which, being looked to as a leader in the community, whether it's in the church or, otherwise, that is kind of his, it's what you sort of would want to see, I think, from your pastor. You want to see him leading, and despite what the struggles are, standing for what's right, what you believe to be right or what the church believes to be right. So to me, putting stress on his family, the congregation questioning him, all the while, he can't believe, and I was of a similar mind, that anybody thinks that giving someone a safe place to sleep was ever viewed as controversial. And I get it, depending on the people that, you're bringing in and all that. But to him, it was more of a, WWJD moment where I've got four walls and a roof. Why wouldn't I open that up? Yep. And he did have some rules. He had some things. He had some suggestions. He helped people when he could. Was he perfect? Nah.
No. He believed in second chances.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And just, after finding, out his struggles, at least the way you know, the documentary ended, I guess, he probably was hoping that he would get second chances too, which we don't know if he did.
I can speak a little more to that. There is an existing 30-minute 6-month follow-up on that I found today.
Really?
That I did watch today. So
interesting.
Yeah, I would have shared it, but we were crunch time. So
no, yeah, great.
Yeah,
I'm excited to hear kind of what that looked like. James, talk about something that stood out to you, sir.
So I think there's a lot of things, but the thing that got me was I don't think this pastor could see past his want to help.
Yeah.
You know, I'm saying this because the guy that came in was talking all this, the Lord led me, Holy Ghost, this and that, and all this stuff he was talking. As soon as I heard this guy talk, I'm like, look at this fool. This guy is just throwing up a bunch of baloney in front of the pastor, tell him what he wanted to hear about the ghosts and all that stuff. And then here he is. I know a liar when I see him because I deal with a lot of crackheads when I was living in my area. And I knew it was a big lie. And then he had to go through bar to bar to find this guy.
There were some pretty sketchy people that were obviously, not telling the whole story.
Yeah, that's true. That's not at all. And this crusade that was blinding him to the truth. That's what I see.
But my rebuttal to that would be, as a pastor, as a leader of the faith, it's not your job to decide whether they're lying to you about their faith or not. It's your job to lead in the faith.
Right. But
so if he had said, you know what, I think you're full of shit, and he turned him away, that would have been an incorrect thing. You know, his job is to say, I'm hearing you, we're all broken, and you're safe here.
That's the truth.
I think he did say that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. But I'm saying that's what the part that blinded him. Because see, as I watched this, I said to him, what is this guy really trying to do? He's not bringing anybody. He's not trying to bring people to God. He's not trying to save souls. He's just saying, I'm Christian, and I'm showing you that I'm God.
He required them to attend the church services.
Just do that, though. I mean, that's just that, you know.
Well, he required them to help around doing whatever they were.
And to attend the church services in order to stay there.
Yeah, he required them to do all the things that his crusade himself would do. So they were like little mini-me's.
But what would you have said? But you just said that he wasn't trying to turn people to God. He was instead just trying to make himself feel better.
He was trying to make. To me, he was trying to make people become him. You know, like I can't really try to get to the point of I'm out to help people, and I need you guys to be okay to help people and act that way.
And you think that's wrong?
No, it's cool, but as a pastor, our goal is to save souls. Come to Christ. Come to God. This is how God lives. This is the way God does.
And how would you suggest that he should have done that?
First of all, he should have shared the gospel with people.
So going to church with him and listening to him preach, which is what he did.
I think he did more of like, these are my rules. This is what I want you to do. If you guys do this, you'll be okay.
I feel like the couple people that left kind of show what you're trying to say. Like when they had that conversation with that guy in the restaurant and he's like, I told you need to be doing it this way and you're not listening to what I'm saying. And the guy's like, you have unrealistic expectations. Like, this is just, I can't live my life that way.
Right.
I think that's what you're referring to. Maybe I'm wrong, but.
That's close enough to what I'm saying, you know. Because when you go for Christ, you go for Christ. It's not about the money you make. It's not about what you're going to do. You're heading for Christ. And then Christ is supposed to change you on the inside. And therefore, you'll live that new life in that new way. That's the whole thing of being saved, you know. But this documentary is more of, I'm going to help these people. I'm going to do this and that. And I can't see another way. And that's that, you know.
So you think this was more about his desire to help people and less about trying to lead people to a faith?
Right.
Okay. is Pastor Ranky living in a fantasy world during this? Is he playing the role of savior and trying too hard to help too many people? Or is he doing exactly what he should be doing as a spiritual leader, I guess, in the community? What do you guys think? No wrong answers, just opinions.
I think he was doing, the right thing. I just think his execution was a little off.
Yeah.
I think that he could have handled it in a way that is, more accepting to the community, maybe more inducive of a good environment for the people that were sleeping on the floor. Because you come to find out later that they didn't meet fire code.
Yeah.
And so there were, what he was trying to do was just what didn't seem executed well.
Yeah.
And set it up for failure.
And I could definitely see, like, through some of the conversations he had with whether it was his church congregation or at the city hall and things, where he was sort of he was getting out of it what the information he wanted to get, which I think is probably pretty typical. And what I mean by that is I think he mentioned early on, like, about the fire marshal, where one of the guys verbally told me it should be fine. So that's what he was going off of as law. But until, that fire chief got, in front of the city council and they said, you need to do an actual check and not just, what do you think? Then that's when it went against the pastor and what he was trying to do. I'm of a mind that, and I've had several conversations about this over the years. And if you are claiming to be a Christian and to believe that the God of the universe has created you for one reason, and that's to help save the souls of others and to eventually make your way to the promised land.
Right.
So why, if that's truly your belief, without a doubt, that's truly your belief, why would anything ever get in the way in the short amount of years that we have here? Why would that ever get in your way of just balls to the wall proselytizing, and doing everything you can to show the love of Christ, right? Which, in my opinion, this guy showed. Now, yeah, we see some of the things where maybe he didn't do it perfectly, but again, he's human. And this guy was doing everything he could to provide something that he believed was Christ-like to people at the detriment of his family and of the community. But the community, I mean, James, you correct me on my biblical knowledge, but Jesus didn't give a shit what the Pharisees said, what the Sadducees said, and what the community said. What he was, no, let the children come. Mm-hmm. Bring your broken, bring your,
love thy neighbor.
Bring the blind,
love
and the
thy
deaf,
neighbor,
and the poor, and the
right.
But Jesus did give a care what they said. Well, because otherwise he wouldn't bring out the wrongdoings. If he didn't care nothing, then he would just simply spread the word and say, okay, this is this. But he cared enough to correct and have the correct amount of what it is to be saved. Let me show you this. Let me show you this. Don't be like the heathens. Don't be like these Pharisees, how they preach this and preach that on the outside. But I think on the inside is different.
But I think what my point is just Pastor Ranky saying, despite the comfort it gives to the neighbors, I need to do what I believe is Christ-like, whether or not we in this room believe that he did it well or not. Mm-hmm. I think that's what his intentions were.
Right. I agree with that because, like I said, what he done, he really believed in it.
Right.
So I do agree with that,
Yeah.
I mean, if more Christians behaved like him, there would be a lot less homeless people. That's for sure.
It would.
Yeah.
Be.
A lot less judgment and a lot more love.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. That's one Christ thing he did. Like you said, he did do that.
Yeah.
He didn't not judgmental on anything. He did have little moments but like you said earlier, we're all humans.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
to answer your question, though, Jeff, it's fear. The congregation's just afraid.
For sure.
They're afraid of what they don't know and what they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not, I mean, you're not talking about God-fearing people coming to stay at their church.
Right.
And that's exactly what it is. It's their church, and it's people who don't necessarily believe in God or are new or coming back to the faith because they are broken.
Right.
And it's fear, unfortunately.
And I can't say, I mean,
I agree.
I put myself in the shoes and I say, you know, if you knew that you had unknown people staying, you know, in your place, yeah, this is a place that I take my children and all that. I get the fear, but on the other side,
You're a Christian. Be a
right,
Christian.
Yeah. And if you're at, you know that this is a house of the Lord, and if that's what you believe, then in my opinion, that's the I don't know, that's kind of, it should be expected. I've always had an issue with churches looking down on certain people coming through the doors, no matter what your story is.
I loved that. I want to just jump in. I loved that he said, you know, this is supposed to be a place that the broken and the damned and the condemned can come for forgiveness and for safety and all of that. And you're not letting these people do that.
Right.
That was, I thought, a powerful moment.
Yeah, I thought that was cool too.
Yeah.
Agreed. So to bring it away from that just a little bit, why were people still coming to this town? Because the word got out, what seemed like, of course, I didn't research how long these things took and all that, but it seemed like the word definitely got out that come to North Dakota for money and there's plenty of jobs out here and there's all that. But so is the word not getting out that people have nowhere to live?
Well,
that they're not, you know, that's the piece that I don't understand. There's still busloads of people showing up. How? Why?
Because the media didn't tell them. The media only told them enough to cause problems. And then they stopped. They didn't say anything else. And honestly, the media is part of why this whole thing fell apart.
That's true. I mean, I've even before this years ago, I've seen articles and, you know, seen on, you know, TV broadcasts that the North Dakota oil fields where it was the new golden rush or gold rush. And but it really, there was no housing and yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I can honestly say, sorry, Jeff.
No, go.
I can honestly say, well, that's nothing that stood out, even though it said about the high cost of housing. And I think that is an uprising thing to this day. You know, I mean, to get an apartment building with this one bedroom, you're looking at like $900. 2 bedrooms, you're looking like $1,200, $1,500.
Yep.
And people can't afford that. You know, you're just about putting people out on the streets and stuff like that.
Right.
And I could see that happening. And I understand these people, and I actually feel these people when they say, hey, we all got a place to go. We can't afford this. We losing our homes. Because you guys, you know, not you guys, but, you know, I mean, whoever's owning all the homes and stuff, so raising prices too high. So,
yeah.
Well, and I like to, even one guy is like, I'm not homeless. I have a home. It's in Kentucky. I'm here to make a better life for my family because the media told me this is where I need to go.
Right.
But nobody bothered to say, it's a disaster, don't come.
Yeah,
like,
here I am sleeping on a floor of a church.
Yeah.
And, you know, trying to do what's best. You know, I can definitely feel the struggle in that.
I mean, guys left their entire family at home. You know, it's not just Pastor Renke whose family was on the rocks because of this whole thing.
Right. At one point in the doc, some of the guys kind of start to lose hope. Some consider and others do go back home. Maybe this is just, you know, my privilege talking a little bit, or maybe it's where I'm from or something like that. Isn't there a whole country worth of jobs and things that people can do? Because I'm sitting here like listening to some of the stories of these guys getting so upset about this. And I really think that the documentary didn't do a very good job of going into who was actually employed, who was still looking for work, who had a home to go back to, that sort of thing. And I don't know how they would have done that better, but I felt like, you know, why do people need to be here? I can tell you right now, if I decided right now or in any part of my life to go somewhere like this and to chase the gold rush, so to speak, as soon as I found that I was either going to have a hard time or wasn't able to find it, or I was sleeping on the floor of a church, or, you know, the community didn't want me there, all that. I'm sorry, but I'd be moving on, especially if I couldn't find work.
Right.
Okay, there's nothing that would keep me from getting back on that bus and going, peace, I'm going back to Omaha or wherever else, or chasing the next thing or something. Going to go work at a factory for a while or something. I'm not going to stay here and sleep on this floor. I'm going to go somewhere that I can be. It's not like we're in the Great Depression or the actual gold rush or the Oregon Trail or something where I spent my life savings and I, you know, wore my horses out and my wagons are broken down and I have no choice.
You got dysentery?
Yeah. I died of dysentery. Or, you know, it's either I stay here and make it work or I die. That's not the world that these people are in, unless I'm mistaken, unless I'm missing something, which I'd be interested to hear your guys' take. What's keeping them here?
I completely agree with you. It's not a secret. I left a job making decent money because I was unhappy.
Yeah.
And I had a good bed. So
right.
if I'm in North Dakota and I find myself sleeping on a church cot or in my car in a parking lot or on the floor or whatever, like I'm going to go back home and work at fast food, making whatever an hour, and I'll find something eventually. Like money's not everything, and why they would put themselves in that situation, I personally don't understand. And maybe, like you said, it is privilege. Maybe it is a privilege thing.
Well, based on a couple of people's stories, it sounds like a lot of them were there because they felt desperate in their struggles with drugs and alcohol. And, you know, when a person's desperate like that, they'll do just about anything. They'll move to wherever they feel at the time is going to be a good choice to their family, especially if they're sober enough to make that decision.
It's true.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That doesn't really come out until later, though.
Yeah.
Like the beginning, it seems like it's just kind of slow and almost a little boring and kind of mundane and like, okay, you love God, we get it, you know, no offense, James.
I get it.
But like, then all of a sudden you find out it's a bunch of people that have felonies, they're addicts, they're registered sex offenders. Okay, this is why you have nowhere to go. Right. But why chase a dream that big where you have no net? Like, I don't get that.
Yeah. And I think, Matt, I think you maybe hit it right on the head with the desperation. Maybe some of these people were more, you know, the one guy who said, I don't really need to be here. I'm just here because I was told, like, you know, maybe he was the minority when everyone else is like, it's this or I'm in a gutter somewhere. And, you know, I don't know what else to do, and maybe they can't afford the bus trip to back home, or they don't have home, or something like that. Let's talk just a little bit about what I would consider to be one of the more controversial parts of this doc, or the part that, you know, made me feel the most unsure of, and that was the idea of hiding someone's sex offender registry from the town and the church and putting them up in his own house.
Yeah.
You know, to me, this felt real sketchy.
Yeah.
You know,
it was calculated for sure.
Right.
Even if the guy, you know, Keith, his situation was, in my opinion, that's not as egregious of an offense as, you know, some of the more horrific things, but it's still, you know, James, you and I have talked a couple of times, you know, you're still abiding by the laws of the community, and you have a right as a lead, or you have a responsibility as a leader, I think, to kind of uphold some of those things. And you can't just kick someone else out of your house to bring this guy in because you don't want to put him on the streets. And you know, I feel bad for Keith because he is dealing with something, and I do, you know, to a certain extent believe in rehabilitation, no matter how egregious, you know, but there is things that you're going to be, that's going to be difficult no matter what. And, you know, the guy, Alan, that, toward the end, he was the kind of the right-hand guy of Pastor Ranke, and it turned out that he was hiding a sex offender registry from back in '86. And, he says...
well, was he hiding it or was the pastor hiding it? I was kind of confused about that because it seemed like the pastor knew.
No,
he didn't.
That was why he got kicked out, I think, was because...
the newspaper had done a bunch of research on him, and they discovered
I thought
that
it was because of the media he got kicked out, not the pastor.
Well, the media discovered it, then they brought it up.
And the pastor said, "How could you? Because there's no way I would have let you be in charge." That. Yeah, and they don't state what he did or what the charge was, but he does make a statement that kind of hit me, that was something along the lines of, it doesn't matter how good you are if you did something bad at any point in your life. It follows you, and that's all that follows you. You're not good. I'm sorry. It follows you, and that is all that follows you, not the good things. It's sad. It's such a judgment. So in my opinion, depending on what the situation was, I don't know his specific situation, but yeah, some of those things probably should, for the good of the community, follow you. But it's also really sad in all things. If you get hit with a felony or something like that, that's what people see, unfortunately. And I'm a believer, at least to a certain extent, in rehabilitation, and that people can go back to a more for the sake of the documentary, the righteous path, and to be a good upstanding citizen. And it's not the sins of your past do not necessarily dictate your future. But in the same breath, which I normally walk the fence on things, the sins of your past, unfortunately, are going to be taken into account, and you do have to be held responsible for certain things too. Thoughts on any of that, guys?
Well, I think that my ideology applies to this whole documentary anyways, because, Pastor Rankin's past, his caught up to him, and it affected him on the regular. He always mentioned how he's broken. Mm-hmm. And, I think that ultimately led up to him executing this poorly, and that was just, it's something that affected him throughout his life, and that is what made dealing with the rest of it a struggle for him.
Yeah.
Right. I found it. Didn't you find it kind of weird? I don't know about anybody else, but when he was confronted by the reporter about the sexual things and scandals and all that, how he just ran.
He did run because he didn't want to face it.
Right. That's the point where I thought, hold on, wait just a minute. He should have just dealt with that right then and there instead of just running and just made yourself seem like you just straight guilty.
You're even more guilty,
Yeah, even more,
But there was no way for him to, and I think he knew it. There's no way for me to combat this accusation without straight up admitting, I knew that there was this guy. Not only did I not tell the church and the community, but I let him stay in my house. Mm-hmm. And what does that say to me in this small town? It's one thing in a big metropolitan area, and we've all heard the things about Catholic priests getting moved to other churches after accusations and things like that, is, personally, I think that's pretty damn disgusting. But, it's not like that in a small town. It's once your reputation's tarnished, and you guys are, Matt and Jess are from smaller or lived in smaller towns, and, everyone knows everyone and knows their business.
And your business, yeah.
Yeah. And your reputation, once it gets tarnished, you might as well kick rocks.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the whole thing. Like, you're taught at a very young age, your actions have consequences. Mm-hmm. And yes, I understand not everybody has parents to teach you that, but there's teachers, coaches, various individuals in your life, or just actions that teach you your actions have consequences. Mm-hmm. So to say, like, you do one bad thing and it follows you forever. Well, yeah, that's your consequence. It was a really bad thing. Like, we're not talking, you took a piece of candy from the store, like it's a big thing. It will follow you for a long time, But then when you talk about small towns and how that has a stamp, like, the second you don't just come open about something this big and this controversial, it looks sketchy, like James says, and it looks like you're hiding something. And then you move someone into your house without saying anything. And I don't know about you guys, but not all of his kids looked comfortable with that situation.
No, I thought the same thing.
Neither did his wife.
No,
and
I'm going to say back. I'm going to say what a good Christian wife should say. I'm going to act how
that's
the
exactly what that
pastor's kid is supposed to act. I can't say no. I'm not comfortable with this. Not in front of this camera and in front of my dad over there, who's looking at me with his weird glasses and his butt chin.
Yeah,
but
he said he broke his own rule,
which
was come straight forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
He broke his own rule right there.
Absolutely.
Be honest. He did not know how to be honest, which leads me to believe, are you ashamed of what you're doing? Because if you're not ashamed of what you're doing, why not just be open with it? Hey, community, hey, congregation, this is my plan. This is why I want to do it. This is, the vetting process or whatever. These are the kind of people that are going to be here. Let's talk about it. Instead, he waited till everyone was asleep, met in a dark hallway to have a secret conversation about not releasing the information that you later find out he kicked someone out of his house for. That's sketchy. You're fucking up, bro. That's not.
He kicked out the guy that eventually was his downfall.
Oh yeah.
Too. I mean, the guy went to the media and he exposed the sex offender registry and then all of a sudden things started going downhill.
He could have combated that with the reporter by saying, yes, there is one that lives with me, but Jesus forgives everybody.
Or something like that.
Something like in that manner, then that would have been still talked about, but then they would have something else to think about. Well, maybe that's right. God,
that's part of one of the things they talked about in the follow up, the 6 month later follow up that I found is after the show they called in. A lot of viewers had called in to question his motives, his real motives behind the overnighters, and he goes on to explain. His motives were genuine. But that was definitely a thing that people thought of after
I'm sure
the show came out, is that his motives may have been not so okay.
Yeah, go ahead and tell what else did you find out in that little...
So it was a half-hour long clip, and you go watch it. It's on PBS. If you go to Google and search the Overnighters Jay Rankin follow-up, it'll bring up a 27-minute video, and it basically asks a whole bunch of questions that viewers wanted to know, and it was produced by the same director, and so he talks about how his family was affected, how he was affected, and turns out he is working in an oil field.
So he did go that direction.
Yeah, he did go that direction, and of course this was 7-8 years ago now.
Yeah.
But so I don't know what he's doing now, but he did end up going to the oil field. His family stayed together.
Oh, wow.
And
I didn't see that.
His family stayed together. And his kids, it was troubling for them, and it was hard for them to accept. And he was open about that. And obviously the overnighter program was done. And never opened back up there again. So it was sketchy, and he doesn't know how to go on and live his life now, because what he was expecting to do is not what he's doing now.
Yeah, it'd be hard at any age, especially at a
and that's what he said too. He's
advanced age.
And as a figure in the community, everybody's watching you. What is he going to do? Especially in a small town.
That's what he said. He said his life was, guiding people, and that's what he felt he was supposed to do. And then he's working in the pipeline. He said he's not happy with that, and because that's not what he felt like his mission was.
Yeah. Can we change it up just a little bit and talk about the poor seagull in this?
At first I thought it was he just accidentally caught a seagull, but no, it turns out that guy was actually intentionally catching seagulls.
That?
Exactly.
It wasn't a seagull. It was a snow goose, I thought.
Sort of a bird. Okay.
It was a goose, yeah.
At first,
look like a seagull, like an albatross.
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe.
Anyway, so I think that pretty well sums up, kind of our feelings on the film. So credits roll at the end, and what are we feeling?
Honestly, I felt bad for him because of exactly what you said in the beginning. Like, he had good intentions. It was all coming from a good place, and it blew up in his face.
Yeah.
And
James?
that just made me sad.
Yeah, I felt the same way. He was for real about what he was attempting, and it just turned backwards on him.
Yep.
I was disappointed. I was disappointed that, the community didn't give him a chance to right the wrongs.
Yeah.
And you always rooting for people that are trying to do good for other people.
Yeah.
Because, you believe that's the mission of people. That should be the mission is to treat people as you want to be treated. Love thy neighbor.
Right. Yeah. I completely agree. I mostly felt sad when it ended. There was a kind of a strange undertone of like helping the homeless that was sort of touted through the trailer. I don't know if you guys saw the trailer I saw, but it actually said that profits from the film are going to help the homeless. And at the end, when they had people saying their names, I don't know if you stayed after the credits just a little bit. They had some of the people saying their names and all that. It felt to me like maybe the filmmaker was attempting to do a documentary like about homelessness or that sort of thing, and that's not what it turned into. It morphed, which I think is probably kind of part of the, I don't know if it's fun or part of the risk in making documentaries, is when you go out there and you're doing real unscripted stories, sometimes it turns into something that you didn't expect it to be, which is kind of fun. But I thought that was kind of interesting.
I was hoping for more of an update about some of the overnighters that were featured in the film. I think that was a huge part that should have been left out. But, seeing the direction that the show took, not surprised that was left out. And they talk about that in the follow-up too, is they had to go back and decide what was to be shown. And well, since everything turned so dark and not the way they had intended when they started filming,
some things end up on the cutting room floor, right?
Yeah.
No happy ending here, unfortunately. And I'm actually, your ending with the follow-up doc was at least a little bit of an uplift, because at least his family's still together. And I, with my more of a kind of, I don't know if you want to say open mind feel, but my thing is, is this man being true to himself? If he's having, homosexual feelings and things like that, if that's who he is and how he would be happy, is he suppressing that? But that goes back to our document. Please check out Talkumentary's Pray Away episode from a couple of weeks ago and hear more of our thoughts on that. But that was my kind of thought. But it was a compelling story. I mean, even though it raised some emotions that maybe weren't fun, I didn't think it was a compelling story.
And he talks about his public confession as well, and how that deeply affected his family. In the end, he said that he prayed for his sins of gayness.
Really?
Yeah.
Pray it away.
He really did. He says that in the end, and then, that kind of contributed to my anger a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. That's not a surprise to me, but it is sad. Okay, so let's talk about rankings. I think that brings us to a good point where we can talk about rankings. So we need to rate this documentary with an official documentary rating. Each crew member scores a documentary with a scale of 1 to 10 items, with 1 being an absolute piece of garbage and 10 being on par with the best documentary you've ever seen. The item that we chose for this week is Holy, Holy, Holies,
Lord God Almighty. Okay.
Holy, Holy, Holies as our rating item. I will start since this was my pick. I gave this a 6. 6 Holy, Holy, Holies. I think it was fairly well made. I liked the emotion in it. I was hoping for a happy ending, so it falls just above midpoint for me. Matt, what'd you think, man?
I gave it a 3 because, I didn't really quite meet my expectations of what I thought it was going to be. I thought the message was going to be in the beginning about love thy neighbor, but it really ended up being, bash the guys trying to do better.
Okay.
And that's exactly what I thought. So I gave the show a 3.
Okay. Jess, your first documentary rating.
I'm going to give it 5 holies.
Okay.
Holy, however that goes.
Holy.
It's pretty holy. It's pretty holy, which is interesting because there's a lot of holes in this, like RV bans that are unnecessary and all of the twists in it that come later. It was better than I thought it would be, honestly, originally. Although it's pretty much exactly what I expected it to be, minus the darkness, I guess.
Thank you for being here, Jess.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, guys. It's fun. I liked it.
James.
I gave it 4 holies.
You gave it 4 holies.
Yep.
All right. So after averaging everyone's scores, the official documentary rating for The Overnighters is 4.5 holies. So that's holy. Ho. Ho. I want to thank my friends, my comrades, my amigos, my friendes, for coming and hanging out with us this week and diving into yet another documentary. As always, I love hanging out with you guys. Jess, it was wonderful to see you tonight. I would let any of you sleep on that futon or my floor or anything like that if you were in need. So,
same.
Yeah,
our house is open,
and I promise I won't wake you up singing church hymns.
Oh,
you said your house is open, huh?
Yeah.
Let's talk about next week's episode. For next week, the crew will be putting on our sweaters and changing our shoes and watching little trains with creepy puppets all around us while we enter the neighborhood of make-believe in the 2018 documentary about the beloved Mr. Rogers titled Won't You Be My Neighbor? Has anyone seen that one?
I haven't seen it.
No, I haven't
neither.
But that is interesting.
It looks good, though.
There's no way this isn't going to be anything but lovely, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, how could it not?
Maybe.
We're due for Mr. Rogers is one of the good
A
ones.
multi-generational icon. Yeah, how could he be worse?
Yeah. Everyone, all of our listeners, please go out and check out the documentary Won't You Be My Neighbor before next week's episode. It can be streamed on Netflix. So next week, James and I are going to put our feet in a cool pool of water and cool off in our kiddie pool with the rest of our best friends, one documentary at a time. Go out and rate and review Talkumentary. If you like what you hear, give us a good rating and a subscription. Let us know what you think of our show. You can connect with us on all of the social media stuff. Look up at Talkumentary Podcast, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or you can shoot us an email at info.talkumentary@gmail.com. Jess, it's been a pleasure. We hope you come back and join us again.
I would love to. The pleasure was mine.
Oh, good. Thanks. I know. It was awesome for all of us, wasn't it?
Yes.
You're welcome.
On behalf of DJ, King James, Matt, Jess, and the entire Talkumentary family, I'm your host, Jeff Kolaski, and I want to thank you all for listening. I hope you keep your minds open and be kind to each other.
And love your neighbor.
And love thy neighbor
Yes.
as yourself. Holy, 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 the Lord God Almighty.
Amen.
Early in the morning, something.